Okay, so chapter 2, just general intro to Python. This is not going to be too long. We're just going to focus on getting familiar with Python and what it is. So all of these topics. All right, so first things first, we're going to be designing a program. Every time, whenever you need to create something, whenever you need to write a certain program, you have to design it first. Now, we covered a little bit in PLD 101, we covered a little part of this, and we're just going to do a little, we're just going to remind ourselves what it is and what are the steps. So you're going to design your program, then you're going to write your code, you're going to correct any errors, any typos that your code has, because your compiler will show you that you have any typos or errors. You're going to correct those. Then you're going to run your program again after your syntax errors are corrected. And then you're going to correct any logical errors that are in your code. And logical errors are those errors that visually you can't see first. You can only see them once your program starts acting in the wrong way, in the way that you don't want it to act. So those are the logical errors. Now, as we covered in PLD 101 before, design is actually the most important part of your program. Whenever you're designing it, you're actually putting all of your thoughts into how it should work, why it should work, why you're writing it in the first place. So that's where you can eliminate a lot of problems that might come along the way. So the good design, a great design of your program is the most important step to achieving a well-built program in the end. First of all, as I said, you need to understand what your program must be doing. So before you even begin writing any code, you need to think and analyze why you're writing this program, what the program needs to do, why the customer needs this program. And then also after that, you need to, whenever you go into the work field, you will have to ask questions about all of the little details that the program entails. So do not be afraid of asking questions. Do not be afraid of asking for more information about a program. This is, as I said, this is the most crucial part. So you need to gather as much information as possible before you actually get to coding. You have to determine all of the steps that they're going to take you to actually perform the task, to write the program. And whenever you're building bigger programs, when you actually go work for some company, such as Google, Amazon, all of these big companies, you won't be the only person who will be working on that said problem or on building that program. So you will probably have a team leader, that is gonna separate the task into smaller steps. And then he's just gonna delegate those steps to the team. So that person will actually be the one to determine all of the steps that it's gonna take you to perform the tasks. Now, it's gonna be broken down into smaller parts, and you or your team will probably work on just one small piece of building a bigger, much complex system. Now, what is an algorithm? Another reminder from PLG 101, it is just the way you do things. It's a set of well-defined logical steps that must be taken to perform a task. So basically, in just simple words, is the way you are achieving your goal, the way you have to achieve that goal. Pseudocode, another reminder, what is pseudocode? It is fake code. It does not have any syntax rules. You do not have to follow any rules. It can be written in plain English. This is just fake code that you will use to create the model of your program before you begin the actual coding. So you're going to write down, the steps that your program will take, how the code will run in just plain English. Flowcharts. Again, you are familiar with flowcharts from PLG 101. These are just your diagrams that will show you how your program moves from one step to another. So from the very beginning to the very end is going to show you how your program runs step by step. This is the example of a flow chart. So as you can see, we have a little program here. This is our start, this is our end. We are gonna get some input from the user for the amount of hours they worked. Then we're gonna ask them to enter their hourly pay rate. Then we're gonna calculate their gross pay for them inside of the program. And then we're just gonna display what we have calculated. We're just gonna display the gross pay that we calculated. So this is just a little flow chart for a program that's gonna calculate the gross pay for any user. Input, processing, and output. So typically, your computer will perform three-step process. It's going to receive some input from the user. So the user is going to type something on the keyboard. We are going to store it somewhere to use later. Then we're going to perform some process on the input, which as we did right here, this is where we performed our calculations. We performed something with the input. Here's where we took our input, these two steps. We took some input, we performed some calculations, and then we displayed the output. So we took that input, we displayed it on the screen, it turned into output. So these are the three main operations that your computer will perform. Receive input, perform something on that input, produce the output. Here is how we do it in Python. So whenever you want to display something on the screen, Python is very simple when it comes to writing code. So all you have to do is just put the keyword print. You're going to open your parentheses right here, parentheses, and then you're going to put quotation marks. And inside of that quotation marks, you can put anything that you want to be displayed on the screen. So in this example, we're displaying hello world. Again, you do not have to put hello world. Literally anything inside of these parentheses, anything that you put will be displayed on the screen. Now, the only thing that you need to know is that print is a keyword. So there's no other way around it. You have to put print if you want to display something on the screen. Then you have to put parentheses, and you have to put either single quotation marks or double quotation marks. It does not matter. So you can use whichever quotation marks you want. Now, the text here can be anything, but then you need to close the quotation marks and you need to close the parentheses. So this is the general format of printing something on the screen. Let's see. Now, this is an example of three print statements. We have three print statements here. These will be executed from top to bottom. So this one will go first, this one will go second, and this one will go third. And since each one of these are their own statements, right? Statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, this is going to be matched in your output. Statement 1 is programming, statement 2, we're printing is, and statement 3, we're printing fun with an exclamation point. If you wanted all of these lines to be on the same line, right? Because these are all on 3 different lines. If you wanted them to be on the same line, you would have to put is fun over here. So instead of these, you would put is fun, exclamation point, quotation mark, close parentheses. So this way, if you typed it this way, everything would be on the same line. All right, string and string literal. So now we are getting into data types and variables. So string is what we call a sequence of characters. So this is a string, this whole thing is a string, everything that contains letters is a string. So if you see characters on your screen, it is a string. Now, a string literal is a string that's going to appear inside of your code. So if you have a sequence of characters, if you have a string that is enclosed either in double quotation marks or in single quotation marks, that is what we call a string literal. So it's the only difference. One of them is enclosed in the quotation marks and the other one is not. String is not enclosed, string literal is enclosed. Comments. Comments is, remember how we talked about internal and external documentation? Comments is the part of the internal documentation. So everything that you see inside of your program is internal documentation. Now, comments are just your little notes that are going to explain what is going on inside of your program. So they begin with this character right here with a pound. They begin with a pound and or a hashtag, whatever you want to call it. And everything that follows a hashtag will be ignored by Python. So it will be completely ignored. Your program will not see it as part of your code. It's just going to know that it is a comment. It will not be executed. Variables. Okay, variables, the most important part, one of the most important parts when it comes to programming. Variables. You have to understand what they are. So if you do not understand, or if something doesn't make sense, just don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions that you might have. So variables. It is basically a place where we store our data, any type of data. And remember how we have strings, we have integers, we have decimals, we have floats. So we have all of these different data types. If we want to store that data somewhere, we will store it in variables. Each variable will have a name, and I will show you an example right here. This is the general format of assigning some data to a variable. So you're going to have your variable name, you're going to put an equal sign, and you're going to put whatever data you want to be assigned to that variable. In this case, we have a variable called age, and age, we are assigning 29 to variable age. Right now, we have this variable age that stores the number 29 for us. So it's nothing too complicated. Let's look at a couple more examples. We also have a variable called temperature that is assigned to 75. We have a variable cost that is assigned to 87.99, and we have a variable called name that is assigned to Monty. And you see that this is enclosed in quotation marks. That's how I know that it is a string. So any string must be enclosed in quotation marks before you assign it to a variable. Otherwise, your program will crash. Okay. You can also assign values to multiple variables at the same time. So in this case, these are separated by commas and the values are separated by commas. So what this means is x equals to 0, because this is the first one, right? X equals to 0, y equals to 1, and z will equal to 2. This is the same as doing this. This one sentence, the same as doing 3 sentences. There are a couple of rules for naming your variables, and it's not only in Python. In every language, there will be rules for naming your variables. So it cannot be a Python keyword. Remember how I told you that print is a keyword and at the very beginning. So you cannot name your variable print. And there are a couple other Python keywords. However, if you use one on accident, your program will tell you that it is a keyword. You cannot use it to name a variable. Now, your variable name cannot contain any spaces, so it has to be one word. If you want to separate it, you can separate it using underscores. For example, if you want miles per hour, right? Miles per hour. You can do it this way, or you can just do it miles per hour if you want to name your variable like that. First character must be a letter or an underscore, so it cannot be a number, it cannot be a sign, only a letter or an underscore. And after that first character, you can use either letters, digit, or underscores. So you cannot use exclamation points, you cannot use anything like this. This will not be allowed. So you can only use letters, digits, or underscores. And your variable names are case sensitive. And what that means is, for example, if you have a variable dog, all capital letters, it is not the same as a variable dog, all lowercase letters. So that's all that you need to know. Case sensitive, these two are not the same. And almost forgot the most important part. Name your variables based on what they store. If you have a variable that stores age, name it age. You do not have to name it something that doesn't make sense. For example, if you have a variable called name and it stores a number, well, that doesn't really make sense. A name should be a string, right? A name should store somebody's name. It cannot store a number. So, okay, displaying multiple items with the print function. You can display multiple items at the same time. All that you have to do is just separate them by commas. So, for example, if we wanted to print multiple variables, we would do it this way. We would put variable age, then we would put a comma, variable name, comma, I don't know, name, age, social security number. If you wanted to print all of these, you would just have to separate them by commas. Very simple. Variable reassignment. You can, for example, if you assign your variable age, we had a variable age to assign to 29. If you want to reassign it, for example, the person just had a birthday and they turned 30. All that you have to do is just put age equals 30. It's that simple. So all that you have to do is the same thing, just type the same thing, just change the data that you want to be assigned. Data types, we have different data types. So these just gonna categorize your data in memory of your computer because we have different types of data such as strings, integers, floats. And again, I will explain what these are. Int is integer, so any number that does not have a decimal point. So 1, 2, 10, -40, all of these are integers. Now, float is a real number, so a decimal. If you have 1.0, 2.5, 40.8, these are all floats or real numbers. And string, as I told you already, we know what string is. String is just a sequence of characters. So any word, any sentence that is a string. Numeric literal, that is a number that is written in the program. That's just a fancy word for saying number. And certain operation will behave differently depending on data type. What that means is if you want to add, for example, two numbers, you can do that. But if you want to add a number to a string, obviously that's not going to work. You're trying to add a number to a word. That does not fly. Now, as you can see in Python, a very useful thing that you do not have to specify which data type you want that variable to have. That variable can have multiple data types at any given point of your program. So in this case, we have an x, variable x is going to reference an integer 99. Remember, integers are our whole numbers without a dot. So integer 99. And then we want to assign x to a string, take me to your leader. We can do that even though these two are different data types. This is an integer and this is a string. But thank you, Python. We can do this. The next class that you're going to be in, Java does not let you do this. Java will not let you do this. So make use of it while you can. All right. This is going to be the last thing we're going to cover today, reading input from the keyboard. So it is very simple. Again, Python just simple. Is a simple language to learn. Java is much more wordy when it comes to writing code. However, in Python, it's very simple. Remember that we can read input from the keyboard. So whenever you want to ask your user to type something for your program, you will ask for input from the keyboard. How you do this with the built-in input function. So very simple. You want to read input, you're going to use the input function. You want to print something on the screen, you're going to use the print function. Now, how do you do this? You have to store whatever you get from the user, you have to store it somewhere. Now, it's very simple. You're going to put a variable. You can name that variable anything you want except input. Input is a keyword. And then you will put that keyword input and put the prompt. I will show you an example of that. Let's look at this. We have a variable called name that's going to store our input for us. Now here we have input And our prompt is we're going to ask the user, what is your name? So we're going to display this first, how it's going to work. We're going to display what is your name first on the screen. Then the user will type something for us. As they type something on the keyboard, it's going to be typed right here after the what is your name. For example, I would type Sonia. My name is Sonia. And then this Sonia will be stored in our variable name. So now our variable name equals to Sonia. And then this is how you store input. It's very simple. This will not be a part of your program. This is just what's happening on the inside, just to show you. So we start with this name equals input, what is your name? And at the end, we're gonna end up with whatever the user types stored in our variable name. Input function will always return a string to you. However, if you want to convert that data type to something different, for example, if you're asking the user to type a number, right? If you ask the user to type their name, their age, for example, their age, you do not want it to be a string because it is an integer. You want it to be an integer. So how you do it, you're gonna put int in front of input. Let's look at this. We have a variable called number. And then we are asking the user to enter a number. As you can see, input, enter a number, and we want to store it as an integer. What we do, we put int in front of input. This way we're converting all of our input to an integer. Same idea with the float. Remember, float is all of the decimal numbers. So 9.5, 1.7, these are your float numbers. In this case, we're going to ask the user to enter your score. They're going to enter some sort of score, for example, 90.7, for example, 90.7. They're going to enter that score. We're going to store it first as a string. First, it is stored as a string, and then our computer will see this float. So it will know that we want this string input to be translated into a number. So we're going to get rid of this. And then our input now is a number, which is a float, and it's going to be stored in the variable score. Score equals 90.7. All right, that is all that I had for today. Let me stop